Good morning, everyone. This is Bruno with Wiiisdom 360 Suites. I'm super excited to be with all of you today. We're going to have a great time discussing about data services. Just give me a second. I'm presenting my screen. Can you all see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So the event of today, as always, is going to be recorded as it's live and will be shared to all the participants. Additionally, the slides as well will be made available. So the agenda of today, we'll have three sessions. The first one is going to be co-presented with Patrick Sims from SAP Global COE. Who's going to be discussing about the roadmap of data services. So the reason we actually did that was there were a lot of questions with 4.2, 4.3 about data services. And since Wiiisdom 360 Suite supports data services, we thought it was a good idea. The second part is I'll be co-presenting with Maurizio Mosca. The idea there is going to be to present what 360 Eyes for Data Services does and how it can support you and your SAP Data Services environment. And the third part will be presented with the SAP on how SAP Ariba leverages 360 Eyes for Data Services. And we'll have a very special guest today that will be Vazu that I'll be introducing later at the end. Nevertheless, Patrick, do you want to say a word?
Well, good morning, Bruno, and good morning, everyone out there. I'm sorry I'm not on camera. I'm on travel, and my studio back home is functional, but on the road, my camera does not seem to be working today, so I apologize. Good morning.
Okay, well, all is good, Patrick. All is good. Anyway, thanks for making it today. And well, Patrick, I know we spoke about data services. I think it was back maybe a year ago when 4.3 was out, and then we had a lot of customers saying, "Hey, Bruno. Hey, Patrick. You guys support data services, and we want to upgrade to 4.3, but data services is behind. Are they going to support 4.3? Yes, no. When is data services going to be released?" These were some bunch of questions that the entire community had. And
And I was glad to get them because I didn't know myself until we started talking about it a year ago, which was great. So that forced me to kind of make sure that I was involved and enmeshed with product management. So
okay. And then additionally, after that, then there was the announcement of BI 2024 coming out next year, which is the BobJ version of BI 2024 Business Objects. And there, the community was asking, "Hey, I've got data services. Uh, you know, is it going to be supported?" So all these are things that we're going to try to answer today during the event. Well, Patrick, as usual.
as usual, the disclaimer. So anything I'm talking about is our current plan and intention. So it is subject to change as usual, but hopefully not. So let's get into the fun stuff.
Okay. So what's the vision of data services? What is SAP doing in terms of data services?
Yeah. So I thought I'd start here, kind of with the big picture of SAP from the business technology platform perspective, right? And there are four pillars within that. There's database and data management, analytics, application development and integration, and then intelligent technology. So hit the button, Bruno. We'll see some builds there. There we go. So from the DDM standpoint, we're looking at continuing to innovate and build out with HANA Cloud as our database. And then from a data management perspective, a lot of what you do today in data services, we're looking at putting into data intelligence cloud and also some data warehouse cloud as well. From an analytics perspective, then of course it's SAC. And if we go to the next slide, this kind of sees it all laid out with HANA Cloud on the bottom, DI and DWC kind of to the side and intermediary, and then SAC as a front end. So if we're getting into the DDM topic specific or the database management topic specifically, next slide.
Hey, by the way, as always, please feel free to ask some questions. I'm actually curious to know on which BobJ version you guys are on, and also, of course, which data services. It's of course it's related. So, which data services version the audience is on. It's always kind of interesting to have an idea if people are on the latest or not, and how much behind people are there.
What are you hoping for, Bruno? My bet is 60%
60% of what?
that are on 4.3.
I would say even greater than that,
Ooh,
in
nice.
my opinion. So yeah.
Okay, so focusing in the stack and then on the DDM piece in terms of, again, where we're innovating is really focused on DI and DWC. Now, this is also a little bit of a teaser for stay tuned for those of you who are interested in the DDM space, because next week SAP will be making some announcements related to these tools and kind of where we're going with them even further. But next slide. In this perspective, though, we, SAP, are committed to continue to support our data services and information steward customers in the long run. So that is a solid statement. I love being able to say that, like when Bruno and I do business objects. I love being able to say that business objects is not dead and that we are continuing to support that. So
Yeah, and I know that's very important for the community because a lot of people were saying, damn it, should I continue to invest on BobJ because I don't know what the roadmap is? And as you guys all know, there's going to be BI 2024. In terms of BobJ roadmap, it doesn't end. There's no clear end on it. Just SAP's continue to invest into it.
right,
And it was the same story for data services, where basically you're saying clearly that SAP is going to continue to invest in data services, which is good news. And if I recall, Patrick, in fact, data services for some of the architecture backbone is using business objects, if I recall. Is that correct?
correct. Yeah, they are tied at the hip, which is the good news too, because as you
Right.
said, well, so we'll kind of blow the teaser, but yeah, I mean, so as Bob J advances from an on-prem side, so does DS and IS, and then we even have the deployment options as well.
Okay.
So some of these slides are a bit wordy. I apologize. I was not feeling as creative yesterday with my graphics and such, but the key thing here is, we've evolved since 2021, where we were doing the hybrid data management capabilities, and then in 2022, we made sure that we aligned again with BobJ. So that's when we went to Data Services 4.3. And so with that kind of continuing forward, then I'm happy to say that we are, continuing with the mainstream maintenance of DS and IS 4.3 through the end of the BobJ lifecycle, which is 2025 for mainstream support
Mm,
and 2027 then for priority one support.
okay.
And in addition, then when that ends, that's not the end, because since we have a BI 2024 coming out, and that's an internal code name, by the way. I expect that'll become 4.4 or 5.0, something like that. But
Mm,
with that coming, we will have the same for DS and IS as well. So there will be, current code name Data Services 2024, Information Steward 2024. So they will come out in 2025. All these numbers now, and essentially then have functional support roadmap through 2030 at least, and then the
mm,
priority one support takes in there too.
got it.
Always happy to announce that.
Okay. Looks like I've got some issues with my mic. Just give me a second. Is okay. I guess that is fixed now.
Okay,
And basically, if we had both of the roadmaps of BobJ and of data services, basically they would line up pretty much perfectly. And
correct.
that's typically what I've seen over time, and that's what you're confirming here is there is always like a short lag, of course, between when BobJ is released and when data services is released.
Yeah,
And I think this is pretty much what you're confirming there. And I
yeah.
know
I'm hoping
historically,
though. I'm actually hoping that since we made the Bob J announcement in June of last year, and we made the data services announcement in September of last year. So hopefully there won't be as much of a time lag.
and I think some of the issues as well have been like talking with some customers, like they had to go to 4.3 pretty quickly because security patches, and some of the
Right.
concerns there were saying, well, I can go on BobJ, but I'm stuck because of data services. So that was really holding them. So
Exactly.
if
Yep.
they can be in parity, that's actually very good.
Yeah.
So tell me about Data Services 2024. Is there anything exciting there, or not?
Well, I don't know if it's exciting or not, but
Yeah, just
so
make it exciting.
of course, of course. No, it's good. Got to wake everyone up. Um,
Absolutely.
so it will be available on premise, but also through our private cloud edition and managed cloud. So that may or may not be a cool thing. I mean, as many of you know, obviously through the BCP part, etc., SAP is trying to become more and more of a cloud company.
Hmm.
And if you saw our Q4 results, we kind of we're really hitting that point now where we truly have become more and more of a cloud company. So that is certainly our guidance, but we know that not everyone's ready to go that way from a feature function perspective with tools. So we do have our private cloud editions that are out there. So that's maybe some good news. Not sure.
Hmm.
Um, much like the Bob J24 announcement, we are going to be focused on the most widely adopted scenarios. And so that's DS and IS for native ETL, right? Also does include the data quality and data governance, which is great. Everything that you have from an existing architecture and component map will be followed.
Hmm.
So it's not going to be a heavy lift. It is compatible with BI 2024.
Hmm. Hmm.
And unlike BobJ, some would say, we will provide clear use case migration paths, which I'm always happier to hear that, since that always frustrates me, and I know it frustrates you too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
I,
also, much like BobJ, we our intention is that we will only support Windows and Linux for the 2024 release. So that's probably something important. Probably not happy, but certainly important.
well, look, it makes a lot of sense because that's actually the same story for Bob J.
Right, right,
And of course, you got two type of customers for data services. You got the customers that don't leverage Bob J, and then the others. And historically, of course, there were a lot of Bob J customers, business object customers that were leveraging data services. So I guess in terms of resources, it makes sense. But
yep,
of course, that can be not so simple for customers, and I
exactly,
definitely get that for sure. Uh,
exactly.
so you're saying
Oh,
that.
and I'm sorry. And then the last bullet, just for those of you who have started to dabble in data intelligence cloud, that hybrid management capability will not change either. So,
Okay, and then
so
you're yeah,
no, that was just back to you.
and you were talking about PCE. So in terms of PCE, you're basically going to be supporting the same thing then for Bob J. So private cloud.
Correct. So it's we run the software, we give you the operational support and infrastructure and all of the technical managed services. You're still very much in control of your scheduling, the things you want to do with it, but we run the care and feeding of the machines, if you will. And certainly, there's always key benefits in TCO. There's key benefits in making sure, especially as things are getting a little, a little, oh gosh, what's the word? Since there's some uncertainty out there, right?
Mhm.
And we think about the 4.2 to 4.3 kind of mess for data services to be in line with BobJ. The good news with PCE is that we do all of the testing and we give you annual updates to make sure that number one, that data services and information steward are in the latest and greatest service pack and version, but that also means that they will be more tied directly to the BobJ releases as well. And that's an annual function
Um,
now.
Also, in terms of PCE, first of all, we see actually quite a bit of traction on BobJ, so that's actually it's good news. I'm guessing for SAP, and regardless, all the pretty much everyone is going to the cloud one way or another. So that's
Right.
in the past it was something where people would say, hey, it's cloud is like heaven. It's like nobody wants to go. Well, you know what? Now it's you got to go. So probably don't
Exactly.
say it's heaven because it's probably not heaven, but it's got its own issues, but everybody's
Right.
going there. And also, I'm assuming as for Bobje, you'll be in control of when the upgrades are done, right? For
Correct. Well, I think it's a combination. We do it annually now, so it'll probably be in the same December cycle that the new service packs would be ready. But then I think as part of the SLA, we can kind of work with you on some time lag for when you want it implemented on your own side.
right. And I'm just thinking, let's say you're a retailer, and
Right. Christmas would not be a great time for
Christmas
that.
is busy, so of course the last thing you want to do, unless you've got a genius idea, but the last thing you want to do is to upgrade during that time. So
Exactly.
I think PC there gives you the flexibility. And
It
one
does
thing that,
include it does include a three-tier landscape out of the box, if you will, but there will be additional capabilities you can add on additionally.
Mhm.
And also, for those who always wonder about this, your choice of cloud provider is all good as well from a hyperscaler standpoint.
And then it was interesting because I was talking with a customer last week that went on PCE, and he was saying, look, at first the proposal seemed to be a little pricey, considering everything. And I think what made them do the change, ultimately, they were saying, yeah, it's maybe a little bit more than what we want, but if they were actually adding up all the upgrades that they had to do over the next 3 years, overall
Exactly.
there, the price was lower with less issues. So
Exactly.
that's always something to take in factor is you've got, let's say the time right now where you've got to do an upgrade. Does it pay off? Yes, no. But if you look at it on the long term, it's something that you'll no longer need to pay for. So
Yep.
it's a good advantage
And
there.
that's pretty much all of our PCE customers on the Baji side have said that. And we're trying to find the unicorn in terms of a number ratio of what you currently spend today to kind of give you a good guesstimate. But they're not all the same. The one thing that is the same is that they're all saving money in the long run. So that is great.
Yes. And that's why I was restating that, because that's something, that point is often
Absolutely.
not taken consideration, and that's something definitely that has to be taken
Yep.
consideration. So,
Because it's not just machinery; it's the FTEs to operate that stuff, to do all of that kind of care and feeding, in addition to anything you have them doing from the actual work of the tool set. And
mm,
it also brings up another point in terms of what frequently gets thought of. I can't tell you, well, actually, I'm sure you've had it too. The number of times I've been asked, does BI 2024 do this or do that? Much like that, this is simply data services and information steward in the cloud run by us. It's the same code line, it's the same tool.
yep.
It's a different offering from a care and feeding and maintenance standpoint. So fear not that you're going to suddenly lose capabilities. It's still the same code line. And that's huge. I think that's big through now. And then actually, that's kind of a good. I'll let you guys read this slide later, but it's really diving in on our commitment to you, the data services and information steward customer base, that we will continue to. We do understand that these are critical tools for you, and so we will continue to support as best as we can, both on-prem and ultimately in PCE mode. But
And anyway, and we've already covered that in terms of
right.
product rationalization.
Yeah. So
So
much like the Bob's side before it, right? We are kind of rationalizing down. I already mentioned that we're doing really the most used features within the DSIS stack. And as we also noted already, we are kind of deprecating at the with the installation start. So the end of 4.3 and the start of 2024, we're deprecating AIX and Solaris. We're also going to get rid of some application layer connectivity of those applications that we don't see as kind of continuing forward in the market as well. And also any Java-based adapters where we already have new native connectivity. We're trying to get away from Java, of course, with the need to do that. And so and that's actually nice. This is much more of a simple rationalization strategy than the Bob's.
yeah, that's right. There's probably a little less, but yes,
Yeah,
I agree with you. Additionally, so here actually there's a statement of direction blog that you
right.
will be able to click on, and pretty much, Patrick, I went through it actually before, and basically just it takes pretty much everything you had in the slides. It's just written
Right.
a little bit differently. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. And so, unlike the Bob J side, you know, we don't have a document that's a statement of direction. This is really all we have is the blog, but you can follow the blog, and then you'll get updates when any are made. And also, too, when I spoke with product management, and they included this in the blog, but they really are interested in hearing from you about kind of what you want to see and getting your input on how we keep going through with the two tools. And so there are two email addresses here that will go directly to the sub teams within product management to focus on data services or information steward, respectively. And they really do want to hear from you. So please feel free to email them with your input.
Got it. Well, that's all for today on what we had for data services. Yeah, I'm sorry we have some microphone issues and some issues with the questions. So right now, I just, or in terms of questions, I see one question is Patrick, do you have any recommendations or good practices to share in terms of how to upgrade data services from 4.2 to 4.3? Is there anything you can share about that?
That I have not seen. I've seen nothing internally that has kind of best practices laid out, and that's actually odd to me because normally the data services guys are the ones who do that better than the analytics side. But I can certainly take that and see if there's anything I can find, and we can send it to you after the webinar.
Okay. Okay. Well, that is all, Patrick. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, Patrick.
Thank
As
you.
always. Sorry, I've got a little cold here. And Patrick, before we go,
I'm sure I sound froggy as well.
no worries. So, who's going to win the Super Bowl, Patrick?
See, that's a tough one because I'm a longtime Raiders fan, so I can't like the Chiefs, and I just hate Philadelphia, so I can't like Philly. So I have to then go with the Chiefs for the ACC.
So we'll have Vizu later on from Ariba, and he's from Pittsburgh. And we were joking.
Well, he really can't like Philly. So.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's the thing. So we'll need to have a conversation about that. So
there we go.
But I hope it's going to be a lot of fun, and hoping that next year the Patriots will be back. So we'll see how it goes.
You are a loyal fan. I love it, Bruno. That's good stuff.
Well, we can't let everybody win every year.
That's true.
We can't win every year. Sorry,
which is why I'll throw in Go Raiders as well.
I agree with you, Patrick. That's always a good part. So I agree. Hey, Patrick, it was awesome to have you today. Seriously, thank you very much for making it. And
thank you, Bruno. And
appreciate. And
folks.
If you got questions, because we had some issues with the chat, if you got questions, please feel free to send them to info@wiiisdom.com. So info@wiiisdom with 3 i's.com. And then we'll do our best to share them with Patrick and with the data service product team, and then get back to you. And I'm sorry that we don't have much time for questions because we have that technical issue today, and that prevents us from taking too many questions. So apologize for that in advance. Again, thank you very much, Patrick. So for this, thank you, Patrick. For this second session of the day, we're going to talk about how 360 eyes, so Wiiisdom 360 eyes for data services, is going to support your data services environment. So what is 360 eyes for data services, how it works, what are the common use cases, how customers are using them. So this is the topic of the second session. I don't know if Maurizio has been able to join or not. I don't see if he's in the backstage right now or not, but okay, there's
yes, I'm here.
First of all, Maurizio, it's good to be with you. Maurizio, can you introduce yourself a little bit? Why are you here today? I guess you've got some.
Well, I guess I'm the resident expert at Wiiisdom with anything to do with data services, and that kind of reflects my experience as a business intelligence developer and professional. I have about 20 years experience, mainly with SAP products. So not only data services, but also business objects, universe, and reports and administration. So I'm quite, comfortable and with the whole SAP landscape. And most of my career has been working as an independent a contractor. So I had experience with many clients, different environments, different situations, and businesses. But strangely enough, or maybe not, for some things, the problem is always the same. How do we manage the system? How do we get most of the data? How can we get the metadata out and have it easily to understand? Not just for the people up working there, the developers, but also for maybe data manager, BI managers, GDPR managers, all that kind of people who don't have direct access to the applications, but they still want or need to know what's going on in there. So then I joined Wiiisdom, and I found the tools. Finally now you know how we can do that. I wish I knew that when I was working with those clients, and I could tell them, yeah, well, we got the tools for it, but yeah.
Yeah, in fact, it's we introduced the data services actually a couple years ago, and
Yeah.
then of course since then the solution has evolved, and we've done a lot of improvements, exchanging with customers, exchanging with you because you've got a lot of knowledge, and even including with exchanging with Vazoo that we'll be talking to with just after. So in terms of problems today with data services, what we hear, and which is no surprise, is the issues that we see is data services. I was going to say Bobjet, but data services is a black box. So it's very similar to business objects, if not even greater to some extent. I would even say, and so there are common problems. What are the key problems that that you can say, Maurizio?
Well, I think the main characteristics that differentiates the two products is that data service is more of a developer tool. It's not really a business tool, which means also there is limited accessibility to non-technical people to what happens behind, under the hood. And the product itself doesn't give great access to the metadata. There are no BI and ETL capabilities. There is no kind of flexible reporting solution that comes out of the box. So that makes it difficult, especially for the people who are not actually actively working with it, to extract some kind of information about, let's say, the state of the jobs, cataloging all the components, performance times, bottlenecks, and which means that if a manager needs to know something a bit more in depth, they need to ask the developers who don't really want to get distracted from their developing job to provide reports. So these are like really the main problems. It is a black box, especially for the people who are not into it, in an active, productive way.
Yeah, and there's no BI and ETL, so there are no reporting capabilities, and because of that, they're always, of course, you've got the problems, and of course you've got the challenges because you're not able to do BI on ETL.
Yes, and obviously it's difficult to document what's happening. Unless you do it manually, which is very time consuming and pretty much impossible anyway. It's difficult or impossible to document changes over time, especially if you want to compare different repositories. Finding where the bottlenecks happen if a job doesn't perform as you expect means trawling through logs and manually checking things. Some parts of the components of data services you can't really search for them even in within the application, unless again you actually go and open each individual object to find that particular bit that you want. And I'm thinking, for example, scripts. You can't really search for scripts. You need to open them and look inside and find whatever part of the script that you're interested in. So there is a lot of this kind of difficulties that make it monitoring and understanding what goes on at the higher level a bit difficult. So particularly you don't really have a kind of global view of what's going on in there, and that could be a problem for it doesn't allow you to be proactive. You might need to to be able to report on data GDPR or regulations, and you want to have that kind of visibility. So yeah, that's all the impacts as I can you put in there.
In terms of visibility, that's always a challenge because you can't document, and because of that, trust is something it's very important for us at Wiiisdom, where you need to trust that things are working. You need to trust that whenever there's something that's changed, you can see it. And of course, in terms of a TCO, let's face it, today it's because it's a black box. It's pretty difficult to manage. There are actually a lot of resources that are needed to maintain data services, and I know Vazu will also talk about that later. But today, without the proper solutions, it's extremely time consuming and limited in terms of what you can do, and ultimately, people spend a lot of time trying to extract the information, and they're not even sure it's coming from the right location. Again, same as in Bobjet. And funny enough, I see that sentence on the bottom is, yeah, that's right, is what happens in data services stays in data services.
Yes,
That's true.
it is. I mean, as a developer, you tend to be a bit jealous of your baby and say, okay, data services is my domain, nobody needs to get in there, only I and my other developers know what's going on, and things need to stay that way because it's a dangerous product to use for people who don't have the experience. So yeah, we tend to be a bit jealous of that. But obviously, at the same time, you don't want your manager to come and say, "Oh, can you give me a report that shows all the jobs that were run in the last 6 months and to see what difference there is in performance?" Because obviously, I want to do my job. I don't want to do these other things that to me are a distraction. So yes, it's it's a bit of a problem.
And in terms of metadata, so overall with 360, and specifically here 360i. So by the way, 360i is for Bobjet and 360i is for data services. They're two independent but softwares, but that actually can talk together. Basically, they all centralize the metadata into one location, leveraging one universe in the case of data services and multiple for business objects. And here you can see for Bobjet, we extract metadata from the auditor, the CMS from the FRS. And of course, in the case of data services, we also extract metadata that we're able to put into the universe and leverage pre-canned documents. So Maurizio, here at a high level, is this what we're presently extracting out of data services? Is that correct?
This is what we're presently extracting from data services. It's an evolving plan. So we, based on customer feedback, we decided what are the most important, the most common things to prioritize. And again, based on future feedback, we might add additional things. But as you can see, all the main components are there. So you can extract data about projects, the jobs within the projects, all the workflows and data flows, and then data sources, targets, tables, files, and all the main transforms, which are the ones exactly that customers have highlighted as the ones that they use most, with various levels of properties. And most important, we can also extract data about job execution times, so we can monitor the times across across the a certain period, and the number of rows, execution time, and we can even drill down to detailed executions at data flow level or components of the data flow, and also schedules, how jobs are scheduled. So again, that gives a good overview of your landscape for the different repositories.
So in terms of use cases, so these are the 5, and of course there are a lot more, but these are the 5 main use cases that we support. And then, by the way, we'll go through some slides to show what each use case is, and then after that, Maurizio will do a live demo of 360i for data services. So the 5 use cases that we will address is documentation, and we've already covered that, and because we're able to do a BI on ETL, monitoring, is the ability to monitor the jobs, understanding where the bottlenecks are, how long things are taking, etc. Things are running or not running. Impact analysis, nothing new there, but that's very powerful. Change management, which is, I know, that's been very important for you, Maurizio, and of course usage and just usage a little bit different than Bobj. So tell us about documentation, Maurizio.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the one of the main use cases. You can basically create a catalog of all that's inside your data services repositories. And obviously, in a typical environment, you will have multiple development repositories. You're going to have your production repository. You want to make sure that you can keep on top of what's in there. So you can see in there you can create a list of jobs, data flows, workflows, projects, and even things that they, in my opinion, they're quite useful. Like you can see a data store list that is quite useful to make sure that your data sources are all always up to date. You can easily detect if there is duplication. So in there you can see something highlighted in yellow, which means that you have two different data stores which actually connects to the same place with the same credentials. So obviously one of them could be redundant or could be removed. And scripts, again, and the code inside the scripts, which is one of the things that you can't really look for when you use data services directly. So it's quite handy to be able to write a report and maybe add a filter to search for something specific in a script, for example, or just provide obviously a catalog to provide as documentation. This is all we have. You can use it to make sure that you stick to naming conventions. Again, they're always a useful strategy in data services. And as I said, possible duplicates, all that kind of stuff. It makes it much easier to do.
And the documentation, of course, that's it's a key use case, and a common use case that we hear from customers is over the years. Like I was discussing, I think 3 weeks ago, with a utility company using data services, which is pretty familiar with, which is pretty common to have utility companies using Bobj and data services. And one of their big issues was to document all the jobs, because they had so many over years that they have no idea, because it's a black box of what is running where. And then ultimately all this information, they have actually to provide it to the auditors. And today, without 360, 360i is there for data services. It's a very manual process, and you have to go in one by one. So that's always a challenge there. In terms of monitoring, what can you tell us about it? What are the key values there?
Well, all I can tell you is I wish I had this tool when I was doing my job as a data services developer, because what management wants to see, for example, is I want to make sure that all your data services jobs run within the allocated time. They don't cause delays. If they do, we need to understand why, and we want to keep an eye on things. And obviously, at the time, we had to provide that data, in an ad hoc way, creating those reports manually, or maybe sending emails, which wasn't really great. But now you can actually write a report with the data that eyes capture, to show for each job whether it's scheduled, the schedule details, each execution. You can give a breakdown of the time it takes, the status, whether there is something wrong with it, and obviously you can further drill down to workflow, data flow component level, to find out exactly where the problems are, or each individual component, again, the time and number of rows processed. You can use BO, obviously the functionality from Web Intelligence, to create some line graph, some highlighting. Again, you can immediately draw attention to what's relevant. If something is a failure, or if it takes longer than it should be in percentage time in respect to the average, again, you can quickly flag it and investigate it.
And here, what's really critical and great with 360i for data services is you're able to be proactive. So you're basically not only looking at, well, it's breaking. Oh, damn it. It's not working. Where's the problem? Well, now we can help you with the problem. But most importantly, what Vizu will present later is to see, hey, I see there's a pattern here. We can see there's going to be a problem. You're able to take action before the problems occur, so that you get your systems with a high availability with data services. So that's a key value.
Yes, exactly.
Impact analysis.
Yeah, again, it's a handy tool to see. Okay, well, I got some components. What happens if this component or this object change or get dropped? So again, we have an example: the data store list. What happens if the user for a specific data source needs to be the password needs to change? That means you need to go into your data stores that use that particular connection with that particular user, and you need to change it in data services. So what happens if you have 100 data stores? You need to check each of those, which obviously, again, is very time consuming. Using the reports, you can quickly run a report, you can filter for that particular user, and straight away you know what to do. Also, similarly, what happens if a table gets dropped? Well, am I using that table somewhere? Which data flows are used in? If I don't do something, the job is not going to run. So I need to be able to quickly identify where that happens. So this is all the information you can quickly get, and you can immediately, very quickly and easily target to take some action.
So Maurizio, as a for developer, somebody working on data services today, is doing impact analysis as painful in data services that it is in BobJ, where basically you need to kind of guess what's the impact and go through one by one manually? Is it the same in data services than BobJ?
Almost. You have some functionality with data services where you can kind of navigate your way through how objects belong to certain components live inside other components and where things are used. But again, you can't really save it or document it. It's all
Right.
interactive. It's all on the moment. Sometimes it happens to me. I need to find how some processing flows. So I start from the bottom. By the time I get to the top, I forgot where I started from because there's just too much sometimes for me to go through. And again, it's not the same thing as having a nice maybe visualization where you can follow it and it's all in there. You need to just every time you go up one level, the previous levels are gone. So you kind of lost. And again, if you need to present that or to send that to someone, short from taking screenshots for every single action that you have, which is no ideal, and there's nothing else you can do, unless of course you have 360.
So of course it's anyway. Again, it's extremely manual and it's a lot of guessing.
Yes.
Where what's the impact? What are the
Yeah.
interconnections, etc. So that's here. Of course, you're able to document all that. So change management.
hmm Again, that's another big thing. We all know that you can use the central repository in data services to as some sorts of version management, and then maybe you can compare the state of a particular data flow, between different versions. But again, first of all, it's a manual process. You only see what you're looking for. You actually need to go and find it. You don't have an overall view of everything. And most importantly, it can be done within the constraint on each individual repository. But with 360, not only you can check the state of a data flow, for example, between version X and version Y, so snapshots taken at a different point in time, you can even compare the same data flow across different repositories. So if you want to do some sanity checking, maybe making sure that your developer A repository is the same as developer B repository, or at least that the changes that there are acceptable, then that's something that you can do with 360 eyes. But this is something that you wouldn't be able to do with the central repository management in data services. And that without even considering that sometimes, even though there are processes to maintain and to use the central repositories, again, in my experience, sometimes those processes are not followed properly. So again, sometimes changes you just don't capture them because you don't follow that particular process of checking out, checking in, and saving those changes. So again, with 360 eyes, that is not a problem at all.
And what's cool here as well is because we're using snapshots. So of course you can compare snapshots. You can take different snapshots that you compare together. And for example, here what you see highlighted in red is things that were different. But let's say you can use different color codes behind the scene to say, hey, what is in red is what has been deleted. Let's say what is in yellow is the content that has been modified, as an example. And what's in green is the content that's identical. So that you can do that. And of course, behind the scene, we're leveraging Webby. So It's extremely simple to use these reports, to customize them, to filter them, because behind the scene we use Webby, and it's very usual to see customers that let's say they took one snapshot every week, and then after that after 6 months they keep one every month, and then they reduce the amount of snapshots through time, and then you can compare the snapshots, over multiple years. So that's kind of
Yes.
cool. And then Mauricio, in terms of usage.
Yep. Again, you can quickly see if any objects are being used. I mean, in here, usage, we need to make, clarify that this is not the same as business objects usage. It's not how many people have opened a report. This is whether a particular component in data services is used inside another component. If we think that anything needs to be a list inside a job to be used and to be effective, if we see a 0 in the usage column, that means that particular component will never be executed. The logic in there is basically sits there, will never be applied. So maybe that's one of the components that you might want to review, remove, archive, less things you have, less things you need to worry about. Again, that's the reporting capability makes it very easily to get a list of all data flows that have 0 usage, and then you can have a look at them and then remove them, or get them out of the way.
Thank you, Maurizio. So let's go to the live demo. I'll pass it over to you. Here we go. I'll let you share your screen. And while you're loading, one common question that we get from customers is, hey, Bruno, hey, Scott, Lisa, we've been using data services for years. It's pretty complex, and we've invested in Information Steward. What is the difference there? Well, Information Steward is a great solution. The primary difference there is Information Steward is more a solution that will give you a mapping of, actually, that's a good example is, let's say you want to go from point A to point B. It's going to show you the direction on a map. The main difference with 360 Eyes for Data Services is going to document all the stops, all the traffic issues, all the workflows that you have in between. And again, once you've used that map, let's say you got these jobs running, the difference there as well is you're going to be able to document all the different, you're going to be able to compare all these at different moment of times. So that's another big difference. And again, here, because you can do this, you can document. So documenting is a key difference that we're able to provide. That's why we do BI on ETL. You can document basically pretty much anything in data services and compare it through time. So here we are in 360 Eyes for Data Services.
Yes, here we are. So 360 Eyes obviously comes with a universe and a set of reports. Those provide all the most relevant data for those use cases. And obviously you can use the universe and the reports as a starting point to create your own, to customize them, to provide some dynamic interaction, which is a bit what I've done with a series of reports. So for example, here there is a version of the cataloging report, the summary, where you can see a list of projects, all the jobs inside the projects, their usage. You can see and quickly highlight if a job doesn't belong to any projects, which means you can't schedule it. Might be okay, might be part of the strategy. Might be a problem because you might need to schedule them, but because you need to add a project. In the same way, you have a list of workflows, description, name, again, usage, whether they exist somewhere else, and the data flows. Again, you can highlight something that's never used. Let's have a look at that later on, maybe. That's the other one. Data stores. I mean, a typical environment might have multiple connections to multiple data sources, and it might be difficult to actually realize that some of them might be the same connection. Like in this case, different name, different data source, different data stores. Sorry, but same data source, same user. So again, source of duplication. In the same way, you can have a list of flat files. Those are heavily used as well. So it's good to know which ones they are, where they're stored, and then that's one of the nicest bit in my opinion. You can list all the scripts for the jobs. You can see where those scripts are located inside a workflow or a job directly, and then the actual code inside the script. So that will make it easy to run a filter to maybe search for specific keywords and find out maybe if there is any SQL function somewhere. Okay, where do I use it? So you search for that. You can get all the scripts that use the SQL function. This is something that it would be very time consuming to do in data services directly, because short of opening up each script, finding out where it is, there is no search capability for that really. So it's a big time saver if you had that kind of need. And then finally, global variables, again, per job, each job, the list of global variables and the data types. That's again something that will be very useful. From here, from the jobs, I created some links, hyperlinks, where you can then quickly see whether a job, their scheduling and their running times. So again, this is all again using the data from 360 Eyes. You run this, you can see the job scheduling analysis report, which, okay, it's taking a bit. There you go. So you can see for this particular job, when the data was captured in the snapshot, you obviously can also add the date of the snapshot to get more precise. You can see that it was scheduled to run every day, multiple times a day. First time at 14:53, and then go on. And then in here you can see the various execution details for each run. Start, end, how long it ran for, how many rows it processed. You can set up some highlighting. You can set up some flags. Let's say if it takes longer than 25% more or less the previous time, then maybe there is something we need to look at. And then obviously different visualizations. And again, as I said, you can even drill down to say, okay, it took 59 seconds to run for the full job, but how long did it take for each workflow inside that job? You can click on that and you can see a breakdown by workflows, the time, and the rows processed. In the same way, you can drill even down further to the data flow level. So you can see this workflow contains 4 different data flows, and you can see again the time, the number of rows. And if you still want to go down more, you can go to the data flow component level. You can see all those details. So that's another one that will allow you to quickly identify bottlenecks, performance, any differences. Obviously, you can add different visualizations. So that's one of the other ones. So there, and then other ones. We talked about, again, another type of documentation. Maybe, that's again a list of workflows and their contents. So, first of all, their properties, the data fields they contain. You can see in here, you can set them this way. And, this particular workflow contains 4 data flows and a script.
Mm-hmm.
You can go down also to the data flow level. You can see which jobs the data flow belongs to, the source table, the target table, and the transformation query. This is like a very kind of, let's call it basic view, but you can also, again, based on the data that we have, you can even have a different view, which is a bit more complete, in a way, kind of replicating what you would see within data services, where you have your sources on one side, your transformations in between, and then everything goes into a target table. So there you go. That makes you easy to understand how the data moves from one place to another, what happens to the data, if there is any logic applied. And then you can even continue from the target table in here. You can say, well, it's a target in here, but I'm sure this is going to be used as a source somewhere else. And there it is. You have the same table here, uses the source in this data flow together with other tables, which has a bit more complex logic, different transformations, and everything goes down to this other table in there, and on and on and on.
And so 360 Eyes for data services, so as 360 Eyes for business objects, comes with pre-canned reports. So these reports you can modify, you can update them, but there are some reports that we maintain, and we'll be adding over time some more reports based on the feedback. So
yes, that's the other one that I want to show. We discussed briefly this. This is about
Yeah.
changes. That's very useful. You want to, maybe you want to check if something changed between the same repository but different points in time,
Mhm.
or maybe different repositories altogether. You can do that as well. You can see changes in here. Something is changing there. In here, there is a new data flow and a new query that didn't exist. So that's something that's been added. Is it okay? Well, maybe yes, but it will give you a quick breakdown or anything that's different from between points in time. And again, as I said, when you can refresh this and you can say, well, I want to compare this snapshot here
Mm.
against Patrick's snapshot here, just to make sure that we're both on the same line and Patrick hasn't been overwriting my work or vice versa. So again, that's a quick way to. This can be particularly important if you see something not quite right in the job execution. It's, oh, why is that? Things have changed. Let's have a quick look. Let's see if there is a changes in the data flows, for example, and then that can help you troubleshooting potential problems. And finally, just a quick one. That's again one of the examples we gave in the slides. Well, this table here, where is it used? Different places. So if the DBA is going to call me and say, oh, that table STG matter is disappeared, and I need to go and quickly do something in this data flows, otherwise I won't be able to run the job. So maybe replace it with another one or something else.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maurizio. So if you can stop sharing your screen. I'm trying to, yes, my screen is back. So overall, the key takeaways for 360i's for data services are, number one, you can now document. So that's a big thing. You can document, of course, the metadata, and you can compare that through time. Additionally, you can monitor your jobs. One very solid use case, because at the end is, let's say you are a developer, sometimes it can be challenging. Hey, why the hell should I give you money? Well, some good examples are for developers to get money from the upper management are, well, I can actually I can document the job details with GRC teams. So because they do need this type of information. Also, one other solid use case, which is the one of Vazoo, is about monitoring. Is like Vazoo and his management, actually they had some KPIs about monitoring. So without 360i's, trust me, it used to take him days, and here it's just basically it's on demand. Ultimately, as well, whenever you upgrade, you do migration, is going to reduce the cost of timelines, because you're going to be able to do regression testing, compare before and after. And because of all that, you can reduce the amount of FTEs for data services, and have the team focus on their real job, and not going in trying to find out what has been modified. Hey, Maurizio, thank you very much. It's been great
Thank
to
you.
have you.